Atlantic City was supposed to be the comeback story everyone talked about. For decades, this city carried the title of America's second Vegas, a beachfront powerhouse full of casinos, lights, crowds, and endless weekend energy. Families came for the boardwalk, gamblers came for the action, and tourists from every nearby state saw Atlantic City as the easier, cheaper alternative to flying across the country. And for a long time, that reputation held strong. It looked unbeatable. But by 2025, the truth is impossible to ignore. Atlantic City isn't reinventing itself. It's hanging on by its fingertips, slowly wearing down under the weight of its own history. What we're watching isn't a sudden collapse. It's a long, quiet decline that most people don't fully understand until they come back and realize how much has changed. The root of the crisis goes back to the city's biggest mistake. It built its entire future on gambling and nothing else. In the 1980s and 1990s, that seemed like a brilliant strategy. Every year brought more visitors, more casinos, more hotel towers, and louder promises that Atlantic City would keep growing forever. Resorts, Bally's, Tropicana, the Trump properties, they all thrived because they had a captive audience. Millions poured through those doors because Atlantic City was the only real gambling destination on the East Coast. But Vegas evolved and Atlantic City didn't. While Las Vegas spent billions turning itself into a global entertainment capital, with concerts, residencies, sports teams, nightlife, shopping, festivals, and high-end dining, Atlantic City stayed locked in place, believing slot machines would always be enough. The fantasy collapsed the moment nearby states legalized gambling. Overnight, the lifeline that kept Atlantic City alive was sliced apart. People no longer needed to drive hours to reach a casino. They could play blackjack 10 minutes from home in modern resorts that weren't surrounded by failing infrastructure. Between 2014 and 2016 alone, 5 Atlantic City casinos shut down. Thousands of jobs vanished. Tax revenues cratered. The city government was pushed to the edge of bankruptcy, with state intervention becoming the only thing preventing a financial disaster. Block after block emptied out. Hotels decayed, entire neighborhoods slipped into neglect. The boardwalk kept its smile, but everything behind it was falling apart. Then came one of the biggest surprises in the city's modern history. Hard Rock stepped in. When the Trump Taj Mahal closed in 2016 and fell into total disrepair, most people assumed it would rot away like so many other abandoned projects on the boardwalk. Instead, Hard Rock bought the massive property for a tiny fraction of what it once cost to build and poured nearly $500 million into resurrecting it. They didn't just reopen the casino, they rewired the entire identity of the building: concerts, memorabilia, restaurants, bars, modern rooms, and a complete reimagining of the space. For a moment, it felt like the spark Atlantic City needed to survive. But even Hard Rock couldn't change the underlying math. It didn't bring a wave of new visitors. It mostly pulled customers away from weaker casinos that were already struggling. The market wasn't growing, it was rearranging itself. Hard Rock succeeded because it ran efficiently and offered real entertainment, not because Atlantic City had suddenly fixed its long-term problems. The same limitations remained: a shrinking gambling base, seasonal crowds, inconsistent tourism, and a city core that still failed to match modern expectations. Hard Rock became one of the only healthy properties in a place where too many resorts were still drowning. Visitors today describe a city that feels split between two realities. Inside certain casinos, everything looks polished, busy, and alive. But step outside, and the cracks appear instantly. Infrastructure hasn't kept up. Streets need repairs. Empty buildings create dead zones between attractions. Safety concerns drive families away from wandering beyond the boardwalk. And the biggest issue of all is that once tourists finish gambling or eating, there's not much else to do. Entertainment is limited, shopping is underdeveloped, daytime activities are sparse. Las Vegas learned that diversification protects an economy. Atlantic City never got that message, and now it's paying for it. Workers are the ones feeling the impact the most. Dealers, bartenders, servers, hotel staff, all of them depend on steady tourism to make a living. When casinos slow down, tips evaporate. When tourism dips, entire shifts disappear. Many employees describe a constant anxiety about the future, wondering if the city will rebound or if their jobs will be swept away in the next round of closures. These are people who powered Atlantic City for decades, now facing a market that can no longer promise stability. Even the new investments that do arrive run into a wall of old problems. Developers hesitate because the city has a long record of stalled projects, political friction, and inconsistent support. Massive wins like Hard Rock and Ocean show what is possible, but the momentum never reaches the rest of the city. One block improves, while another block falls apart. One casino thrives, while 3 others struggle to keep their lights on. The balance never stabilizes long enough for a real revival. Atlantic City's biggest untapped advantage, its beachfront location, is also a reminder of how much potential is being wasted. The ocean should have made Atlantic City unstoppable, offering experiences no landlocked casino city could match. But decades of underinvestment, seasonal dependence, and a lack of family-friendly attractions turned a natural asset into little more than a backdrop. If Atlantic City had developed a real beach district, a nightlife boardwalk, festivals, or high-end entertainment beyond casinos, the story today would be very different. At this point, Atlantic City isn't dead, but it's undeniably fading, a slow, predictable erosion caused by years of decisions focused on short-term revenue instead of long-term growth. Hard Rock may be its strongest lifeline, but not even a well-run resort can defy the economic gravity pulling the city downward. Without reinventing itself beyond gambling, without investing in safety and infrastructure, without giving visitors a reason to return besides nostalgia, Atlantic City won't collapse. It will simply fade into irrelevance. It is a city that once dominated the East Coast, now slipping in the quiet background of American tourism. A place that had every opportunity to evolve but stayed frozen, while the rest of the industry raced ahead. And unless something changes soon, the story won't end with a dramatic crash. It will end with silence, the final stage of a city that forgot what made people fall in love with it in the first place.